So far in my World of Warcraft journey, I have leveled 3 entire characters, my warrior, my mage, and my beautiful druid. Each having their own entirely different leveling experience. I also decided to try out the horde side of things with my rogue, which has been great so far. However, we have put the horde adventure on pause for now, because I recently gained the need for a hunter. But what could I possibly need a hunter so badly for? Well, that's a story for another time. So for now, it's time to return to the Alliance once more as I attempt to level my first ever hunter alongside my trusty pet, Gerald. Last time, we hit level 56 by questing through the Plaguelands, Winterspring, and the Burning Steppes, and we even managed to take on what might be the most important dungeon in our entire journey, Blackrock Depths, which gave us some pretty big XP gains, but also we got a couple of gear upgrades too, and we even got our first piece of pre-bis gear from Dire Maul, the Royal Seal of Eldrith Alas. With all of that now done and completed, today is a very special day, and it is time for our final push in the series, which is why the goal for today's video is to reach level 60, the maximum level in World of Warcraft Classic. So looking at the map, we don't really have that many places left to quest. I mean, we've been all over the world on this playthrough, and well, one of the very few places that we had left was the Eastern Plaguelands. So I flew over to the Western Plaguelands first and began making my way to the east. Almost immediately after entering the zone, I came across a very important NPC, Tyrion Fordring. Lore-wise, I think he's a pretty significant character. Not sure if that's true, to be honest, but he's important to us because of a specific neck piece, the Mark of Fordring. With it offering 1 crit and 26 attack power, this would be the best out of raid neck slot item for us. So completing his quest chain would be one of my top priorities. So starting that off, he gave us 3 quests that are very, very simple. He wants us to kill 30 plague bats, collect 15 worm meat, and then kill 30 assorted types of plague hounds. Now I know that sounds like a lot, which it is, but these kinds of quests are perfect, especially right at the start of the zone, because they spawn basically everywhere, and whilst we were working on other quests, we can just do these along the way. On my journey to the east, I found Pamela Redpath, and what she wanted us to do was to collect the pieces of her doll and then return it to her. Basically, we searched the nearby ruins, which would spawn ghosts that would attack us, and I actually do remember doing this quest on my druid, and I remember that these ghosts would hit insanely hard. But since we are a hunter now, I've forgotten what it's like to be slashed by steel. After I had all the pieces I needed, I returned the doll to Pamela and once again began moving to the east. After around 30 minutes of running and killing, I had not only completed most of the murder quests, but we had made it to Light's Hope Chapel, and this place was filled with people, because at the time of recording this, I think it was 3 to 4 days after Phase 6 was released. So I grabbed every quest that I could, minus the level 60 invasion quests, plus I made sure not to be on a layer that any invasion was currently taking place, just to avoid as many horde as I could. And with that, I was ready to get started, but before I did, I noticed in my quest log that one of the quests simply wanted a bunch of items that I could purchase from the auction house. So since there was a mailbox right there anyway, I decided to log on to Cat and purchase everything to instantly turn in the quest. And let me tell you, it was a lot more expensive than I thought it would be. I started by buying the thorium, which was like 30 silver each, and by the time I'd gotten to the golden rods, I was already 20 gold deep in this thing. So now that we are officially on our way, I actually went all the way back through to the Western Plaguelands to pick up this wedding ring from a tombstone, and since it was here, I decided to go into the big central building, which granted was pretty difficult to even get inside of. What we needed to do was pick up a specific book from the floor that would also spawn a ghoul when we did. After that was completed, it was time to return to the Eastern Plaguelands, and I could now get started on the northern quests. And what better way to do that than with more murder quests? But you know, this one is actually quite unique, because kill quests are always just kill a certain amount of something or loot something off of their corpses. This one is basically the same, but when we kill one of these ghouls, a spirit will linger over the corpse and we have to talk to it to set it free. And I know that's basically the same, but at least it's different, you know, a bit of variety. But apart from that, it also took a while for me to get this one completed, because for some reason there was a ton of level 60s running this quest, and on one occasion I was killing a mob, and then someone spoke to the spirit after I had killed it for their own quest completion. Cheeky dicks. Once I had finally gotten that done though, I moved further into the northern part of the zone where the Naxxramas entrance is, and here we had a couple of quests, but there was also an elite quest, and ordinarily we would never have been able to solo this because of the massive scary elite mob, and it's situations like this that really makes me think that Hunter is the most broken class, because using Gerald to distract the elite, we can quickly run in and set off the explosive for the quest. But after doing that a few times, my gear was really just not in the most pristine condition, so I quickly entered into this building, which was luckily cleared out by a level 60, and we simply had to pick up Augustus's recipe book and then return it to him. After hearthstoning back to Stormwind and repairing my gear, I actually decided to go back to the Western Plaguelands again, just because I wanted to make sure that I had gotten everything done. And very simply, we had to run around and collect skeletal fragments from skeletal berserkers. Now luckily, these guys were literally everywhere, and we were able to get it done fairly easily. Now the thing is, the follow-up quest wanted me to go all the way to Gadget-san, and normally I would say absolutely not, there is no way that I'm traveling to the other side of the world. However, you guys keep yelling at me for not completing full quest chains, so I thought, screw it, this time I will actually do it. I will travel to the other side of the world and I will see what I was missing. So I went all the way to Booty Bay from Western Plaguelands, then took the boat all the way to Ratchet, and then took a bird all the way to Gadget-san, where I turned in the quest, which then wanted me to go to Ungoro Crater. So I sent myself the thorium bars that were required for the quest and went all the way there as well. What we needed to do was go up to Fireplume Ridge and forge the unfinished skeleton key, which was actually quite cool. It made the ground shake and everything, which made me think that I was completing a quest chain that was actually quite significant. So I googled it, and turns out we were in the middle of the Scholarman's Key quest chain, which in my mind would be quite handy to have, so I was looking forward to finishing it. But before I went back to the Plaguelands, I first made a stop in Azara, because I had a quest here as well, and we simply needed to stealth in and pick up another book. A 45-minute round trip, and I'll be totally honest, not sure that was worth it. So I returned to the Western Plaguelands again, and I was excited to turn in this key quest and see what that was all about, only to be greeted with a level 60 elite killing quest. Well, looks like I'm not getting my key, for now anyway. And again, since I was here, I decided to head to the very north part of the zone and to complete some of these Scarlet quests. And starting that off, we had to clear our way into this sawmill looking building and set off an explosion of termites, which is pretty grim when you think about it. We then had to kill a couple different types of Scarlet mobs. Now, the thing is, the Scarlet Knights were perfectly easy to kill. They were just roaming around minding their own business. But for the rest of them, they were all surrounded by other mobs that would lead to situations like this. But thanks to a friendly orc warrior, he saved mine and Gerald's ass from almost certain death. After I'd managed to get that done, we then had to take down Huntsman Radley, which was kinda the same situation as the last quest, where the mobs were just everywhere. But thanks to feigned death and the sacrificing of Gerald, we were able to get all the way behind the mobs and target Radley on his own. Now at first, I wasn't sure if the fight was going to go the way that I wanted it to, since there was 2 extra mobs with Radley. But you know, it wasn't any bother at all, which I'm again going to blame on hunters being absolutely broken for solo content. I mean, could you imagine me trying to do this on my warrior? It just wouldn't be possible. After taking down Radley, I went over to Hearthglen for another solo elite quest. What we had to do was overlook the POI from a high vantage point, and ordinarily you would need a full party to even have a shot at getting this done. But again, I think feigned death might actually be the most broken ability in the entire game. With that now done, I think that's pretty much most of Western Plaguelands finished, so I returned once more to Light's Hope Chapel, where I could turn in literally 10 quests at once, including returning to Tyrion to turn in his quests and listen to his story, which got us to about 2/3 of the way through level 57. So of course, to start off the second round of quests, I immediately moved to the south of the zone to complete the next of Tyrion's quests. We needed to loot a hammer from a grave. However, when you do, it spawns 4 mobs that we had to kill. Now every single time I've tried to do this quest solo before, it was either just straight up impossible, or I logged on to my mage and I AoE'd them down for myself. My first attempt at it went about as well as I was expecting, but on the second attempt, I was able to nuke down the big mob that we needed to loot, and then pop Aspect of the Cheetah and make a run for it. 4 characters deep into this game, and I think this is the first time that I've been able to solo this quest. quest. If that isn't direct proof that hunters are overpowered, then I don't know what else to say. So I returned to Tyrion quickly to turn in the quest and began my final few quests of the zone. Very simply, we had to dive into a lake and pick up a symbol of lost honor for Tyrion, then dive into another lake to pick up a skull of some kind, which I think was supposed to be getting guarded by some undead spirit looking things, but they were currently fighting some friendly mobs, so I just left them to it and I snuck in to grab my thing. I then quickly returned to Tyrion once again to turn in, who now wanted us to go to Scarlet Island, and I did say that I wanted to get this done, so that's what I did. I travelled to Scarlet Island where I found artist Renfrey, who after turning the quest in, immediately wanted me to go back to Tyrion, which apparently I did not record, but the follow-up quest he offered wanted me to go to Stratholme, which currently we were not high enough level for. And that was it, I think. We were pretty much done with the Plaguelands. The only remaining quests were either elite, dungeon, or invasion quests. We were now getting pretty close to level 60, only 2 levels left, which okay, fair enough, is still like 16 hours of gameplay, but I was now really starting to think about gear, so I decided to buy myself the Dark Phantom cape, a cape that would give us plus 15 agility, which okay, isn't quite as good as the cape of the Black Baron, but it would still be insanely good, especially for only 7 gold. Well, I was looking at the Wowhead page for the pre-base hunter gear, and that's when I saw it. The Wormhide Spalders. Simply, they would give us 2% hit. And sure, the True Strike shoulders from UBRS are just straight up better, but if you watched my Druid series, then you'll know that these things don't seem to like me very much. Now lucky for us, the Wormhide Spalders simply come from a quest in Blackrock Depths, so I decided to find myself a group and ask them if they would help me take out Baelgar, which worked out perfectly since the tank apparently also needed them. Now this boss I didn't recognise at all. I don't think I've ever fought him before, which honestly is a bit insane that BRD still has things that I hadn't seen, despite being the dungeon that I had probably ran the most out of any of them. And to be honest, Baelgar was actually quite tough, and by the time we'd gotten him down, everyone was out of mana and had a big chunk of health missing. But for the quest, we simply had to use an item on his corpse to collect his fiery essence. And apart from that, we actually then went and did a decent amount of things in here, including hitting level 58. We took out High Interrogator Gerstan, we did the entire Jailbreak escort, took down Anger plus Golem, and even went into the Dark Iron Tavern to kill Hurley Blackbreath and Ribley Screwpot. Everything was going pretty smoothly. That was until I decided to press multi-shot in possibly the worst position possible, which pulled the entire room and wiped us. But not to worry, we respawned and we went at it again. Now sadly, the Warlock that was with us decided that he would complete the quest that he needed and then leave us. Now unfortunately, after that, we had to just disband. And I said it in the last video, and I'll say it here again, if you're going to do something with a group, you stay and you complete it. Don't just go and do what you need to do and then dip. So now that I had my beautiful shoulders, I once again went back to looking at the pre-base list of gear, and I noticed that a lot of the gear comes from one specific place, a place that I had never been before, Dire Maul. Well okay, I've obviously been here before in order to get the DMT buffs, but I've never ran the dungeon before, and well, I was expecting big ogres with massive weapons, but no, this one was filled with living trees. But not only trees, it was also filled with arcane elementals that were apparently quite important, because in order to take down a boss called Imolthar, we needed to clear out I think 5 of these elemental packs. The first boss is Tendrous Warpwood. Now he's actually quite interesting. First of all, he can drop the Warpwood Bindings, a fantastic waste slot item that would provide 14 agility and 1 crit. But he's also interesting because if you didn't take out every single tree patrol, then whatever ones remained would then come to his aid in the fight. And I think it's pretty cool that the boss interacts with the rest of the dungeon. We then began moving upstairs where we had to take out some very hard hitting spirits until we came across the boss Magister Calendris. Loot wise, we didn't really care about anything he drops, and he really wasn't that difficult. The only notable thing he did was cast a mind control onto one of the players, and we got him down without any issues. We then moved even more upstairs to where we found Ilyana Ravenoak, who I think is like a hunter since there was also a bear there. As for the loot, again, there really isn't anything we cared about from her. We then went downstairs and through the door until it opened up into this gigantic room, and this looked really sick. The middle of this room had that big boss Imolthar, and and he was protected by like an arcane shield, almost like he was trying to contain him. The boss itself, I think, is a unique character model. I know, a non-reused model, can you believe it? But then again, I'm not actually sure if that's true. Loot-wise, again, nothing we really care about, and I don't think I noticed any sort of mechanic from him either. He kind of just stood there and meleeed the tank. The last boss is a lot less cool, Prince Tortheldrin, but he can drop the Bracers of the Eclipse. Now, I know this thing doesn't look very impressive, but as far as bracers go, this thing is actually the best we can get pre-raid. But of course, he didn't drop them anyway. And with that, I can officially say that I have done my very first run of Dire Maul. Now, there's actually 3 different versions of Dire Maul. That one was the West version, but what I needed was the Dire Maul East version. So I stayed around and I waited for a group. And whilst I was, someone in the group told me that there was a rare mob in the middle that has the potential to drop some very expensive items. So me and the rogue jumped in. I put Aspect of the Cheetah on and I kited the mob around the arena whilst the rogue did his absolute best to not take aggro off of me. And well, after about 6 minutes of kiting, me and the rogue managed to get him down, and he dropped the Orb of Deception and the Dreamwalker armor. Combined, they would sell for about 45 gold, which definitely isn't nothing. And well, I won both of them. With that now done though, we could actually get started. Now, the weird thing is, we weren't going to be running the dungeon normally. We were going to be doing what is known as a jump run, which basically targets the last couple of bosses and skips most of the trash, which for me was a bit unfortunate because I was actually in here because I wanted to get the Dire Maul key. But you know, it's all for the experience, right? So we sneakily made our way through all of the walking plants until we got to the first boss, Hydro Spawn. Very similar to Noxie in this one, because he does basically nothing and sometimes spawns smaller versions of himself. Awesome. But he did drop some leather boots. The next boss is Zevram Thornhoof. Loot wise, we don't care. Now, I don't like this boss for one specific reason. He sacrificed Gerald, which did indeed kill him. But with my heart now broken because of Gerald's death, we moved all the way down to the final boss, Alzin the Wild Shaper, who once again doesn't drop anything we care about. The only real mechanic that he has is that when his health reaches 50%, he spawns a gazillion imps to come and attack us. And the rogue did almost die, but in the end we were able to take him down. But we weren't done just yet, because someone in the group then went and spawned in the tier boss Izalian. Now this would be pretty huge for us because of the weapon that could drop, the Huntsman Harpoon, offering a massive plus 35 agility, which obviously is the absolute best weapon for us pre-raid. But just like everything else in this game, it did not drop. Now although we did just do a run of Dire Maul East, I still wanted to get myself the key, so I once again stuck around. But this time we were actually going to clear the dungeon normally. Now the way we get the key is basically a quest, but it's not really a quest. We have to talk to the imp Puslin multiple times, and each time we do, he would run away and we would have to chase him. So that's what we did. We chased him all the way around the entrance room until he goes down a little hallway where we can speak to him for one last time, and he transforms into a giant demonic imp who we have to then take down and then loot the key. Now unfortunately, we were making our way through to the end boss where we accidentally pulled one too many packs of mobs and it wiped us, and then the healer left. So unfortunately, we had no choice but to abandon the run, which honestly I was okay with because it was getting pretty late anyway. When I logged on the next day, I can't lie, I really just wanted to do some questing, but looking at my map, we had been literally everywhere, and that's when I remembered. Silithus. I had totally forgotten that Silithus does actually have quests available for levelers, so I wasted no time and began flying over there. Of course, we don't have the flight point yet, so we were running from Ungoro Crater, which is perfectly fine honestly, because Ungoro is just such a beautiful zone. After a short 5-minute trip, we had made it to Scenario Hold, and I could begin picking up most quests. Not every quest, because some of them were level 60 story-based quests, and I just didn't want to do those just yet. Now here's the thing about Silithus. Aesthetically, I would honestly say it's just a bit meh. The bug theme in my opinion has kind of worn off, but that might just be due to the massive amount of time that I had spent grinding out Earthstrike and running AQ40. However, that's not to say that I didn't enjoy our time in this zone though, because if you look at the quests, you can see that every single one of them is a kill quest, which are of course my favourite. And to be honest, that was kind of me set for a couple hours. All the mobs we needed to kill spawned everywhere, so I could just chill for a bit and run around and kill as many things as I wanted. On the plus side, I actually made a solid bit of gold from this as well, primarily due to the sandworm meat, because my main character has maxed out cooking and I could craft the meat into smoked desert dumplings and sell them for like 4 gold each. And everything was perfectly normal until I got an invite to join another dire Maul run, and well, how could I possibly say no? So this run started out being perfectly normal. We got down to Tendra's Warpwood and took him down, and you'll never believe he actually dropped the waste piece this time. Finally, a piece of gear for us. And the rest of the run was nothing out of the ordinary. We moved upstairs where I was reunited with the quest giver from earlier and I could turn in the quest, which just so happens to push us over into level 59, which means only one more level to go. But we get down to Imolthar and we take him down just like normal. And that's when the Warlock started up a quest that was apparently for the epic Warlock mount. And almost immediately we were getting swarmed by imps and demons. And at first it really wasn't that bad, but after literally 10 minutes of nothing but imps, everyone's health was low, our mana was drained, and sadly, we wiped. But we respawned, and I think everyone was expecting to have to restart the entire encounter, but no, we were actually right at the end of it anyway, and we were able to finish off the last of the imps. But that's when the big scary demon guy and his mount spawned in to attack us, and to be honest, he was a lot easier to take down than the trash was, which is something I've come to notice about WoW Classic. Sometimes the trash is actually harder than the bosses, but we are not done just yet, because we then went to take down Prince Tortheldrin and claim my shiny new bracers, which never dropped. Now that we had gotten at least some kind of gear upgrade, I once again returned to Silithus to finish up anything that we had left there. And again, it was just a whole lot of killing. Scorpions, worms, spiders, you name it. If it was in the zone, you best believe we were going to be killing it. And I also had to go up to the very northwest of the zone to collect some twilight tablets. And to be honest, I didn't think that this area would be as quiet as it was, since usually there's hordes of people farming these elementals for elemental earth. I then decided to head south for a bit for another solo elite quest. What we had to do was pick up Noggle's satchel, and I think the idea behind this quest is that you're supposed to kill the elite mob death class, but again, we are playing the most broken class in the game, and we were able to do it completely solo. We also had to pay a visit to all 3 of the Twilight camps in order to kill 3 different Twilight keepers in order to collect some book pages. I then turned that quest in and had to immediately return to the Twilight camps to collect encrypted Twilight text. Now, I am very familiar with farming these, because a few months ago, these Twilight texts were going for upwards of 4 gold each, and for a couple months at least, farming these would be my main source of gold income. Sadly though, these days they have dropped to only about 1 gold each. I then returned to Ortel for a final time, and that was it. We had done basically every single quest in Silithus, and I gotta say, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, aesthetically, I thought it was pretty ugly, but the questing here is just so chilled out. We were now getting pretty close to level 60. We only needed about a quarter of a level, and initially I wanted to go to Upper Blackrock Spire because I had just picked up the final Onyxia attunement quest, but I ended up going for a run of Lower Blackrock Spire instead, which I forgot to hit record on. And the unfortunate thing is, whilst doing this run, one of the officers in my guild had offered to take me, a level 59, into Zul'Gurub, which would have been an insanely epic way to hit level 60. But I think I've made it pretty clear that I don't like deserters, and I kinda felt the need to stay with this group anyway. We first made our way down to Huntmaster Voon. Now, if you remember way back on the Druid series, we actually got the gems for the UBRS key in 2 runs. However, this time around, we don't really need it, to be honest. We then moved upstairs to Shadowhunter Vosh. Now, this one is pretty big for us because of the crossbow Black Crow. Plus 3 agility and 1% hit. I believe this is one of, if not the best ranged weapon for us. Unfortunately though, it dropped Rip Hook, which actually isn't that good for us at all. We then dropped down and took on Mother Smolderweb. Pretty simple fight. As long as you kill the little spiderlings, you're good. And she dropped the Wild Heart boot. boots. Next up is Quartermaster Ziggurat. Now originally I thought that the Cloud Runner girdle that he could drop would be the best in slot belt for us, but turns out it would just be a straight up downgrade, and weirdly he didn't drop a single item, not even that weird footlocker thing that he usually drops. We then take down Halcyon. Not really much to say about this one, to be honest, apart from the fact that I managed to get the quest here done. And lastly is of course Overlord Wormthalag. Now this one can actually be quite tough. I remember when I was tanking it, he can sometimes send you flying into the air which resets threat, but apart from that he does just hit incredibly hard. Now he did actually drop the Beastmaster's mantle, which I needed on. Now I know this individually looks like it's just a straight up downgrade from our current ones, but I believe if you get the Beaststalker's mantle, chest and legs, you can then turn all three of those in to get the best in slot pair of boots. So I thought I might as well take it just in case we decide to do that. Now after our lower Blackrock Spire run, we were so incredibly close to hitting max level that I was just hoping that maybe, just maybe, our quest turn-ins would get us to level 60. But unfortunately, that was not the case. But not to worry, because I randomly got a message asking if I wanted to come to Scholomance, and well, obviously, I said yes. So we entered into the dungeon and started clearing our way through, and really only after about 5 minutes, it happened. We hit level 60, and I can now officially say that I have successfully leveled 4 entire characters in World of Warcraft Classic. I hope you all enjoyed today's video because I enjoyed making it. So the hunter is now fully leveled, and I gotta say I really enjoyed it. I think it is definitely going to be up there as one of my favorites. So what's next? Well, I do plan on making a couple of max level videos for the hunter, including the undisclosed hunter business. I know you guys are very eager to find out what it is, but I'll tell you, there is a clue somewhere in this video. And if you can guess it right, then maybe I will tell you. But apart from that, we've also got the next druid video coming soon. How exciting. First ever time in Naxxramas. And then I've also got a bit of a fun video that I'm going to be working on pretty soon. It's a little bit different format wise, but it's still World of Warcraft related. And lastly, of course, we will be doing another class. It is my goal to level every single class in World of Warcraft Classic, and I think we've probably got enough time for one more class before TBC pre-patch is released, where obviously we will start on another series on either a Blood Elf or a Draenei, which I'm very much looking forward to. So if you head over to my channel page and scroll over to the posts tab, there is a poll asking which class you guys think should be next. And at the time of writing this outro, I believe Shaman is winning. So I think that is enough yapping for today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you all later.